Welcome to session 15, The Truth of Words Matter. We will today be at least beginning, I don't know if we'll finish, but we'll definitely be working on the third verse of Genesis, of the first chapter of Genesis, 1:3. The verse is, and God said there should be light, and there was light. Before I go into that, let us just go over a little bit of what is happening energetically and what we can learn from what is happening so that we can understand how to move forward better. What we do in life often depends on the strength of our desire. Our desire causes things to emerge within ourselves. We have a feeling, a desire, so it builds up inside. Now, that feeling, that desire, is that who we are? Is it something else coming forth? Or something for the future? What part of ourself is that really, that desire? Essentially, we have desire because the Creator had desire. The Creator created an energy for existence to happen, an energy called will and desire. Will and desire didn't exist as will and desire until they were given a definition. So they are a creation. And since the Creator created it, that's the origin of desire and will. That is the motivating force within a creation that has limitations. After all, without limitations, there's no will, no desire, there's no purpose, really. Everything just is. Now, we find that we translate our desires into various descriptions or put those desires into a specific framework. But the desire that we have itself doesn't always have that description. And so sometimes we put a description to desire and then we do something and later on we think, that's not my desire is really something else. And then you get involved in something which you think is your desire or will, and then after a long time it doesn't fill you. There's a void there. It's not what it is. So yes, we do create descriptions or put the desire in specific frameworks, but that's how we channel it, but doesn't mean that is the desire, because the desire doesn't have that description. What we have, like in verse 2, there's a haze in creation. And so there's a haze as to the purpose or the ultimate direction of what, or destination of what that desire is. So we have the desire, and the question is, what is the end result? In Pirkei Avos, Ethics of the Fathers, it says, a wise person is one who sees the end results of things. How many people look to see the end result? Most people only see the instant result or very short-term result, but not the long-term result. And even that has limitations. But at any rate, there is a haze. And the desire itself, the purpose of it, often has an endlessness. And that's why we try different things, and somehow sometimes we've never fulfilled that full desire, only bits and pieces or partially at different times. But it's that desire that with our senses or feelings or understanding that helps us move forward in life. And it doesn't matter what we imagine, that imagination is a spark that leads us to do something. But sometimes that imagination helps us fulfill what we're here for, and sometimes that imagination takes us on different journeys. So the thought or the feeling may excite us, which is an impetus, but it may be also something that's far from the physical reality. And as we see, a lot of people have thoughts, have desires, speak about things, but if you listen to them, you see that they don't relate to physical reality at all. It just remains in an imaginary space or theoretical space or whatever. And the one reason is because sometimes for a desire to happen, it needs to go through many processes. So there are times you can desire something and then you go through a journey and a process. So it doesn't look even like feasible, or it doesn't look practical, but sometimes you can push it through if you stay focused on it to bring it to some expression or conclusion. Sometimes those things are permanent, sometimes they're only temporary. Similarly, we sometimes encounter a person who has supposedly good intentions, but their energy has no form or shape. Sometimes a person seems to have shape, cultured, everything, but behind that, they're very dark. And when you connect with some of these people, the problems become endless and destructive. And sometimes we attach ourselves to form and shape, and then there's an endless amount of things that come from who knows where, without form, without shape, just different places that get in the middle. And it seems endless. There's always something blocking us, something's there. So every time there is a change or a blockage or something happening, the way we need to look at it is that every moment is a new creation, and every moment is the beginning of a new creation. And therefore, when things happen, we say, okay, what is this the beginning of? What is it going to bring out? Just like a seed needs to rot before it can grow, so too in life, a lot of things rot. We become disassociated, disconnected, things happen, and it's there for a purpose, to let us move forward. And they bring imbalances. Many imbalances are there, but if you wait and look, you'll see some good things happening after as well. And sometimes, not on a physical level, but in a spiritual space, those things have to be removed. Those energies have to be removed for you to move forward from an energy perspective. So in the first verse, where everything is balanced, that's a place where there's a clarity, internal clarity, and it's open to anything in any direction. And that's what happens in verse 2, is it is a description of the desire of the Creator, and that it's open to any direction. It's just an energy, a life force, and anything can come and take from it. It can go anywhere. And so because it can go anywhere, it does go anywhere. And therefore you have both positive and negative things at this point in creation. But the desire of the will of the Creator is where things need to come. And that's why you have the third verse, that there is light. The word light we translate actually as clarity. So you have the haze that's in verse 2 that has a blockage to understanding or knowing the will of the Creator. And then you have the light, the clarity that is now being brought forth in order that we can know what the will of the Creator is, and that the energy of creation can go in a direction that the Creator wants it to go. So in the first verse, we have the word Bereshit. The word light or clarity is Or, Aleph Vav Resh. Now, in the first verse, you have the Aleph and Resh, those two letters. Those two letters are part of the letter of light. On top of the letter Aleph and Resh, if you put a dot up there, it's pronounced or, just like the word light or clarity. And there is a reason for this, because this is over here, when it does it, just a dot on top, it hasn't been brought forth. This letter Vav means that the clarity is being brought forth, which means that there's a clarity before everything is brought forth, and there is a clarity after the haze. So it's a different type of clarity. It's a clarity that incorporates the haze. So when you have the haze then brings a clarity, but that clarity also is a clarity only with what's after the haze, not what's before the haze. So there's clarity in haze and there's haze in clarity. So that clarity is still has a certain limitation because it has a haze before it. Whereas the clarity that existed before before this part of creation was a pure clarity without haze. So there are a lot of different elements here. So I'll just say something. The world is round. Why? Because it comes from a source that has no beginning and no end. So that's where it initiates from. And then in the world becomes details. The details evolve at different points in different ways. And that's part of what the rest of this chapter is, the evolvement of the details of the creation. And when you have a round world, it's in a certain sense, it's like what goes around comes around, because everything is connected in some way. So even though you have details that come out in specific areas, on a deeper level, there is a connection with everything. And so I'll just tell a little story. There's a story about a man who was walking from the land of Israel to Babylon. Obviously, this was printed a long time ago. During the journey, the man sat down to eat. At one point during the meal, he noticed two birds having a fight, and one bird killed the other bird. Then the bird that was alive went and plucked a certain piece of grass, put it on the dead bird, and the dead bird came to life. When the man saw this, he took some grass and carried it with him. He thought, that's great. He can do miracles, bring people back to life. On the way, he saw a dead lion. So he put a piece of grass on the animal, and the lion came back to life. The lion was obviously very hungry, so the lion attacked the man and ate the man for his meal. The lesson from that story, interesting story, but the lesson is that each thing is created for a purpose. Everything has a time and a place to express that purpose. The man didn't think of it and used the ability in the grass in the wrong place and the wrong time. And this is one of the reasons why the light and clarity that's at the beginning of creation was hidden from people, hidden from mankind, because people were abusing it. Just as we see now, when people have any little bit of power, their mind goes bonkers, it corrupts them, and they do everything which is destructive to other people. We see a lot of that, and we see that's always happened, not just physically, spiritually. There is white witchcraft, black witchcraft. People have power, some use it for good, some for bad. So if you have the ability to connect to this level of creation, then you can change anything and do miracles, and if you can destroy the world, as the world was destroyed before the flood. They destroyed everything. So this light that is at the beginning of creation, or clarity, is only open to very few people. And even though people want it, or most people don't even know about it, It's just blocked for most people because of the abuse and not knowing when and how to use things. In other words, just because you have the ability to do something doesn't mean you should do it. It's nice to have the ability and to know things, but not everyone has to know that, and not always do you have to do it. We live in a world where there's a lot of people creating who they are. And sometimes it's okay, and sometimes it's destructive. Yeah. So the second verse, the third verse, is Vayomer Elohim Yehi Or Vahi Or. And God said, there should be light, and there was light. The way we're going to translate it at the moment is Vayomer, and expressed softly. There are two different words in Hebrew generally for speech. One is Vayidaber, like God spoke to Moses, Vayidaber, and there's Vayomer. Vayomer is a soft manner of speech, and Vayidaber is a harsher manner of speech. And we'll see what the differences are, what it means soft and what it means hard. Elohim, as we've explained, is the power of boundaries. So it's different from the first verse. It's the same word, but different. And one of the problems in translating God in this whole chapter is there is no such a thing as a God here. God is something only later on, when there was a physical world and there were people created the term God to talk about different powers. But since there is nothing else existing here, the word God makes no sense. There's no such a thing as a God. There's nothing else to call it God. So, you can't be called a father if you don't have a son. You can't be called a mother if you don't have a child. So I guess you can, in a spiritual sense you can, but physically not. And the same thing here, the word God, besides the fact that it's not a Hebrew word, it makes absolutely no sense. So when you say the power of boundaries, that's exactly what it is. Elohim is a power of boundaries, but this one is different from the boundaries in verse 1. The verse 1 was a general power of boundaries. This power of boundaries is very specific. It's after the haze, there's now a boundary because there's a haze. And so it needs to bring clarity. So this boundary is about the haze, the blockage, and the clarity for everything that needs to be in creation. So the first Elohim had no haze, had no blockages. This one has a blockage. And so the boundary becomes more distinct. And as we go through the chapters, each time it says Elohim, it's a power of boundaries, but with a certain distinction different from the others, specific to the place. So this one incorporates the blockage, the haze, and the clarity that comes forth through it to the creation and for the creation. And I don't translate the word or as light, simply because it makes no sense. There is no light. For those who translate or look at the whole chapter as a physical creation, there's no sun and moon till the fourth day. It's not possible there is physical light here. And they have a problem with trying to figure out what it really is talking about. It's some other type of light. It's not a light. It's a clarity. It's light in your mind. The bulb went off in your mind. It's an expression, so the word here is about the clarity, which is in clarity of bringing forth the desire of the Creator, all the details and description of it. And we'll go into the letters a little bit later also, or today or next week, to show what that is. It's not light. So in verse 2, there's a discussion, there's talk about imbalances or blockage, which is the haze. And now we're bringing, Vayomer is also bringing forth a clarity to move forward with the desire of the Creator, which means it goes, really, this is a continuation from the first verse, the first word, which it means wisdom. Now this is bringing forth the wisdom of the Creator in direction. So it's not in that sense, it's not a continuation of verse 2, it's a continuation of the desire of the Creator, but it only happens through the second verse where there's a haze, where there's a description of something. So now this needs to be brought forth, but it's brought forth by the power that is in the wisdom and desire of the Creator. Now the Medrash Rabbah, the word Vayomer, the Medrash says that the word Vayomer, and he spoke, is not speaking, and Hashem said, not spoke. Hashem, I guess that's the difference between said and spoke. Said is soft and spoke is harsher, maybe. So here the word Amira means with the heart. We find in Exodus chapter 2:14, to kill me, you say. In other words, by Esau, it was in his heart. So he was talking about saying it, but it was in his heart. And same in Ecclesiastes 2:15, and I said in my heart. The Zohar says this is soft as in a whisper. And we find other places that the word Vayomer, speaking, is not necessarily words, but it's often words, speaking to yourself in your heart. So it's not words of the gutturals of the mouth. It's internal. The word Yihi, and God and the power boundary said Yihi-ar, or expressed Yihi-ar. Yihi-ar will go into it also, what the Yihi means, and it will be, because it doesn't say it should be, it says Yihi. And we need to understand what that Yihi is and the difference between the Yihi and Vayihi when there's an added letter to it. And so the Sforno writes that the word here, this Yihi, which is generally translated, it should be, Yihi is something that when the thought comes up in the Creator, with the Yud Hey Yud, Yihi, it should be, it automatically happens. Between the thought process or feeling or desire and action, there is no separation. At this point in creation, everything is created in thought, so that it instantly creates itself. There is no separation. And so if a person actually can connect with this energy in creation, they can create anything. They can do any change. It's possible, and that's why it's so dangerous, and that's why it was hidden, because people would abuse it. But also, Yihi describes something new, which we'll go into details of that as well. But Yihi also means that it existed in some way before, and now it's being brought forth. In other words, what we had before was a very generality of the desire of the Creator, but we didn't have details. But whatever it was existed within the desire of the Creator, existed all the details. And now a detail is being brought forth. That's the clarity that comes after the haze. And what type of a clarity is it? So the Zohar, the Medrash Zohar says that it's a clarity that enables a person to be able to perceive or perceive or sense everything in the world, everything in existence. You don't have to travel anywhere. You can actually see it. And there were different righteous people, tzaddikim, who couldn't see the whole world. Depends how much light is open. There were those who could only see in their immediate surroundings for maybe 3 miles, another guy 10 miles, another person just the city. Different people there could physically see with their mind things going on to a certain degree, but they were open to parts of that light. But the light itself, if you're open, you can see everything anywhere in the whole world. And it's very hard for us to understand because we can't compute all the information of seeing everything like that, because we only use a small amount of our brain. Whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 4%, whatever it is, we use a very small amount. If our brains were unleashed, opened up to the full potential, we could process everything. It's the most incredible computer, and we could see everything and process it instantly. But that has been blocked from us because of our abuse of that power. Anyway, the Zohar also says that this power is so great that no one in this world that we have could exist with that energy. That energy would just knock us out, destroy us. And so it had to be concealed because we couldn't exist with it. We know that there are frequencies, whether it's from the cell towers or the wires around us, that affect us. And there are people who are oblivious to it and people who are sensitive to it. But the energies that they are we can still absorb in one way or another. But if the energy is too great, you can destroy a person just by bombarding them with an energy that's too much for them. So that's a physical energy. When you're talking about the energy of creation, it's even more powerful. Nothing can exist. It's a ray in the sun. When the sun explodes, going away from the sun, it becomes a ray. But in the sun, there's no such a thing as a ray. It's nullified to the sun. So this is the beginning of expression called clarity. Let me go to another part. The word Vayomer, the word Amar, the word Vayomer has, where is the paper? Okay. The word Vayomer, which is here, has the Vav means and, Y, Amar. Those 3 letters, Aleph, Mem, Resh, Amar means said. Those 3 letters have an interesting meaning to them and the form and shape of them. Normally, when you say something, you think of the gutturals of talking. But, as we said, here it's about feeling and thought. Igor de Kala writes, it means something that's quiet. In Samuel 1, it says, and David said to his heart. Samuel 1, chapter 27, verse 1. Now, in Sefer HaPartzuf, he writes that through this saying that's here, the energy becomes united with the source. So it's not just that after the haze there's a clarity, but it's through the words Amar, Vayomer, and he said, that connects the source before the clarity with this clarity. So it's not separated. In other words, the haze hasn't separated it. rather it stays connected or reconnected. And this connection is not just for the creation, but it's a connection that for everything is after we have disturbances that impact the oneness of connection we have, you can come back afterwards and say something to restore a connection. Sometimes you can't, but sometimes you say words to pacify the other person or open the connection or remove the issue that happened. One of the ways that this is expressed is that Vayomer is also spoken of as a garment. The words enclose the amira, the saying, enclosed itself around the thought or feeling of the person who is expressing that thought or feeling. And therefore, when you use words to express a thought or feeling, it's not just words themselves, it's what comes within the words or behind the words. And that's where the problem is, that many people limit themselves to words and don't look to see what the thought or feeling is, what the connection of the person is to the words they're using. Is it external, internal, what the intention of the person is, because that intention may not be what you're hearing. But many people get very stuck on words, and you can control people with words if you know how to move the energy behind words as well. So the words are called, this Vayomer, and he said, is enclothing the feeling and the desire of the Creator in creation. Moreh Nevuchim Maimonides says, Vayomer, this saying happened in a prophetic vision, in a prophecy. Not a prophetic vision, but in prophecy. There are a lot of people who have dreams or things come to them and they think they are prophets. I've met a lot of people like that. Oh, I had a prophecy. Just because you know something is going to happen, or you get information that something may happen, or you get information about something, doesn't make you a prophet. It just means that you're open to a more universal energy. There are many different energies. There's a universal knowledge. And so when you're open to it, you get dreams, you get thoughts. It's from the universe, but that's not prophecy. It's not from the Creator. The word Navi actually means movement of the lips. So the Creator brings a vision to a person who moves it with the lips. So the Creator speaks through someone. Most people who have these visions or think the prophets, the Creator is not speaking through them. It's just their own energy or spiritual level that's speaking through them, but it's not prophecy. Most people are on a very low spiritual level and really have no clue about the level of what a prophet really is. If you never saw it, you don't know it, I guess. The word Amar also is telling us about the type of connection that is here. The first letter is an Aleph. An Aleph is open on the right side and the left side, on both sides. All the letters, Hebrew letters, if you look at the Hebrew letters, they're closed on the right side and open to the left. The letters follow, Hebrew goes from right to left. So the flow is from right to left. The only exception is the Aleph, which is open on both sides, right and left. And one reason for that is that the Aleph is the letter that reflects receiving from the Creator. It centers it and then gives to the others. That's a letter. And interesting enough, every letter in Hebrew has a sound except for the letter Aleph. the letter Aleph is silent. It doesn't have a sound on its own. The first way sound that will come from it is if you add the letter Yud, a dot. Why? So it's I, whatever. But it doesn't have a sound of its own. Which makes it a very soft energy. So it's a letter reflects something between the Creator and creation. And that's the first letter of the word Amar, said. So in the heart, it's reflecting a place of silence that has no expression, and the beginning of some expression that's internally within the heart or within the mind. The next letter of the word Amar is a Mem, which is closed 90% and opened only a little bit at the bottom left. And that shows that most of the energy is concealed within it, but there's a small opening for things to be revealed. And it's revealed in a soft way because it hides most of what's in it. So it's only revealing a little bit. Whereas a mem that's used at the end of a letter is totally closed. It doesn't reveal anything. The letter mem, which is the second letter of the word Amar, saying, is composed of two letters, which is, let's see if I can, wrong page. Here. This letter here, Amar, Mem, is composed of two letters, a Chaf and a Vav. Chaf and Vav is numerically 26. 26 is the numerical value of the four letters of God's name. That's the tetragrammaton that's well known. It has a numerical value of 26. In fact, there are a number of scholars and people who look for the numerical value of everything and find a way to connect the numerical value of 26 in everything, in every word of Torah and everything. There's always somehow they connect it to a numerical value. There are many different systems in Hebrew how to evaluate words and create connections through different types of systems that are numerical. A lot of different ways. In general, it's called gematria, but the gematria has many different systems. And for example, the gutturals, anything coming from the same guttural, they change. They can change the letters, the words, and numerical values. The same thing would be anything that is 10, 20, 30. It goes back to its lowest value, mispercotton. Then there is a squared. You take each letter and you times it by itself, and it makes something. You change the first and last letter, the second letter, the second last letter, or it goes from 1 to 10, then from 10 to 100, and they change. There are a lot of different systems, numerical systems, to find different things, all called under the term gematria. But at any rate, so the mem, this mem, which is numerically 40, has, if you look at the design of it, it has two letters which are numerically 26, Hashem's name. So it reflects the power of the Creator. So the first letter, Aleph, is a connection from before this point, the Creator, and what comes after. The Mem is reflective of the power of the Creator. And then the third letter is a Resh, which has a line on the top and a line on the right side, which also reflects the power of the Creator, that where it comes from, the top and the side, are closed and everything else, the left side and left bottom are open, that energy can go anywhere. So Amar is a saying, but because it's open at the end, again, you can have negative energy coming from it. So even though what is happening here is about bringing clarity to the haze, but by expressing something, you're expressing something and you're not expressing something else. So there's always, in everything, there's always an opposite side to everything. And that's just the way the place was created. Everything has an opposite, even if you're not aware of it. So the first letter of a word in Hebrew is always the main energy source of the word. And the idea is that the Omar saying comes from a place without definition, and it's expressed within definition in a soft manner. In other words, the power of limitation here, the power of Elohim, is so powerful that it can limit an infinite power not to do anything, not to become destructive. That's how powerful this Elohim is of this word, that it's limiting a power that doesn't have limitation to create an opening for something to happen. So it's a very great power, but it can only come through in a very soft manner. And that's true with anyone who has power, who has real power. They don't have a need really to express that power, but when they do share, they share what is appropriate and limited to whoever it is. They don't share their whole power, because that can be destructive. So the Evan Tova writes that thoughts of the heart is the language of the heart. So when you say thought, also when you say speech, Vayomer Omar, it could be it's speech of the heart or the mind. The same thing, thought. There's thought of the mind, but there's thought of the heart as well. On both, so it's used both for the heart and the mind. And everything that's here, expressed, is expressing a will and of Hashem. So this is the beginning of this verse, Vayomer, and then the next word is Elohim, which we spoke about, and then the next word is Yehi Or, should be light. This is quite a subject. And we'll try to do a little bit. There's a word, Yehi, here. Let's see. In the verse, you have Vayomer Elohim, that's what we just spoke a little about, Yehi Or, there should be light, or should be clarity, Vayihir, and there was light. And this is a Yud, Hey Yud, and that has an extra Vav on it. And these are all things that need to be understood in one way or another. Yehi Or, I'll show you this here. The word Or here, Or, light, if you take the Yud here that's next to it and put it into there, it becomes Avir. Avir is air, the space between you and something else. The space between things is called Avir. So if you put the letter Yud together with the Or, it becomes Avir, that space. And that space is what often allows things to occur or to happen. Sometimes it allows things to spread because there's space to spread in. Sometimes that space is a protective energy, Well, it's a protective energy around the earth, the aura around people, anything. That's what the Avir is. So this clarity is not just a clarity of the purpose in creation, but when you use the word Yud in it, the letter Yud, it's also an energy of protection for all creation. Because when you bring things forth, you need to protect them as well. You can't just bring forth things and say, I created and that's it, and let go. There needs to be a protection for it to exist, and exist in a positive way, that there's no destructive energy. So that's what the word Avir is, which that's adding the point of God into the light, into the clarity. If you keep an open connection with the source, then there's a protective energy. If you block that out, there is clarity, but it can also be used in a wrong way. So, the Baal HaTurim, a commentary on Chumash, writes that just by, it says in Divrei Hayomim, Divrei Hayom Beis, that's, what's Divrei Hayom in English? Chronicles, I think, 2, chapter 24, 2, it says the Ruach Elokim, and the spirit of Elokim enclosed Zechariah. So we see here, and just like it says there, it was enclothing him. So the same thing here, through that clothing that we have, that was in verse 2, that enabled that now there should be an expression of clarity. And that was that power, V'ruach Elokim, that spirit that was from before the creation. And that's why in Medrash Rabbah it says from the garment of Hashem, that Hashem created, the light was created, or clarity was created. So Hashem had to create a garment of protection for clarity to happen. Interesting. You'd think you take away the clothing and you have clarity, and here you have to have a protection in order to have clarity. So this clarity, this Yehi, is what these letters, or this word, is what gives life to all the creation, to every existence. It has all the details to all the details that come from it. And it's also, Yehi means there should be a light, a clarity that's appropriate. So Hashem sends out, I need a clarity that's appropriate for the creation, Vayehi, and then came about, or was created, the clarity that's appropriate for the creation, which is less than the clarity of the Creator himself. And therefore, the main aspect of what we need to do is bring clarity within ourselves of the Creator and everything, and a connection, and help other people to also have clarity within themselves and within the world, that they can see their connection with the Creator. That's the idea of righteous people, or tzaddikim. The main purpose is not being righteous or holy. The main purpose is to bring clarity into yourself and into the world of your connection to Hashem, and serving Hashem and loving Hashem. And that's why Judaism doesn't look kindly at people who separate themselves and don't connect with people, because our purpose isn't to be disconnected from everyone. Yes, in order for your own growth and for your own space, you need your own space, but its purpose isn't to be self-centered and have an ego in your own space. Its purpose is to be able to share it and help it with people. There's a story, I don't remember who the rabbi was, a story in Europe of a rabbi who was very well connected spiritually, and he was a beautiful rabbi, and people would come to him with all different things, but because people bothered him so much and he helped people, he didn't have time to learn. So he asked God to take away the desire of people to connect to him. And so God did. And so people didn't come to him, and he was happy. He was sitting and learning. And then after a while, it gets lonely. And he realized, he said, God, this is not a way of life. Just sitting here and learning is not a way of life. Please take that away, and so I can be with people. Because that's God's purpose. God's purpose is that we should all exist as one together, not in our own space as one. But we do need to create our own space if we're going to be with people also. Because if you don't work on yourself, you can't work with people either. You have to always be introspective. And then when you're with people, you're able to be humble enough to work with them as well. So Yehi, that's the word Yehi. And it's also it's powerful. So here we've shown that the word or, light, or the word clarity, is actually in the word of Bereshit, the first word, but it comes through in different ways. When you add the vav to it, that's where it becomes drawn forth. So initially it's only aleph resh in the first word, but when it's drawn forth, when vayomer it's said, that's what the letter vav reflects, that it's now expressed outwards. Then it becomes light and clarity. So just within the Creator itself, it's not the same type of clarity. The Creator's clarity is different, because the Creator's thought is not our thought. The Creator's feelings are not our feelings. It's different because the Creator created the idea of thought and created the idea of feeling. So the Creator is beyond it. So it's a different type of clarity which we can't comprehend. So the clarity that's brought forth is a clarity that's possible for a creation to understand. So this is the beginning of the second verse. And next week we'll go into the Vayi more details and explain that. And so we'll finish the second verse hopefully next week. Thank you very much. And I look forward again to the next class.